Welcome, everyone. Here we are with a brand new episode, brand new guest for She Leads, She Thrives podcast. If you are new around here, I'm Shannon Dunn. I am a long-term business and self-leadership coach and your host here at She Leads, She Thrives. And as I say every single time, very excited to introduce today's guest. So Juliana and I connected on, I would say it would have been Facebook first. Now we kind of like tune into each other's content on Instagram as well, right?
Yeah.
Some time ago. And again, if you have been a listener to She Leads, She Thrives for some time, you'll know that when it comes to the guests that I invite, incredible women who are really making so many waves in the world in all the good ways, when I invite them to come and be guests on the show, it's because there's something about them where I'm either connected with them, I've worked with them, I've learned from them, I'm intrigued by them. And Juliana, you're obviously no different. That's why you're here. So I'm glad that we were able to make this time work and get you to come and be a guest on the show for today. I know there's so much that we could potentially talk about. So I'm really intrigued to see what we actually do encompass and include in today's episode. So welcome. Thank you for being here. And let me just share your bio so everyone knows a little bit about you from that kind of formal sense. And then we'll move into some great questions. Well, I hope they're great questions. So Juliana Frisoli's mission is to empower revolutionary entrepreneurs with the confidence and strategy needed to stand out, share their message, and scale $1 million empire that makes a positive impact. Raw to Rich was founded on the concept that you can make a lot of money and change a lot of lives with an authentic personal brand, powerful message, and the right marketing strategy. Focus on confidence and content marketing as the foundation to success. And before founding Raw to Rich, you worked in marketing, sales, and social media for 9+ years. I feel like when I look at your content, I'm just going aside, like deviate to the side here. It feels like you've got a lot bigger kind of past expertise and background than mine is, right? And you've helped clients make millions, become best-selling authors, get featured in prestigious publications, have 6-figure launches, 10 times their income, selling out their office, so many cool things. So yeah, that's an incredible lot to accomplish in your kind of time in this space, right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Very, very cool. So I'd like to start with how you came, though, to be in your own business, because you've got all this background, and I know a little bit more about you in terms of when I've heard you share about your background and the kinds of work you were doing when you were employed, you know, in marketing. But how did you go from there to being in your own business?
So I graduated in 2017 from college. So I'm relatively young. I'm 28.
Yeah,
so yeah. So that's where like the 9+ years comes from. Honestly, after I graduated, I did not last in a 9 to 5 very long. All throughout college, I was working, part-time in marketing and doing, different like side gigs here and there. I social media managed for some different companies, but it was like freelance work. So I could do it on my time and when I wanted to, and with my creative flows, and I could work from a coffee shop, and that whole vibe worked really well for me. But then after I graduated college and did the whole like 9 to 5 corporate thing, I hated it and I felt stuck, and it was just miserable because I was like, okay, why do I have to sit here in an office from this hour to this hour when literally what I'm doing could be done at any time from anywhere? Like, this doesn't make sense to me. And there were just a lot of little things that added up. I really don't like being told what to do.
No surprise to me.
Yeah. I was like, the tipping point, which I think this is always, interesting to talk about on podcasts. The tipping point for me was when my manager asked me to take on the work of a male coworker who was being paid more than I was because I was more efficient than him. Yet they would not give me a promotion or a raise because I hadn't been there long enough. And so that was kind of the tipping point for me, where I was like, okay, I'm done. I quit. Like, I'm over this. And my story is so not linear at all, because at that time I had just gotten my yoga teaching certification. So I was like, I'm going to go teach yoga and like read tarot and do holistic healing, and that's going to be my thing. And then as I kind of started doing that like brought me into the whole world of coaching. And I was like, oh, this is the thing. And this is like kind of what I do in, my tarot readings anyway with my clients. It's very coachy. And I'm like, oh, this is something I could do. So at first I was like a mindset coach. And then I realized as I started building my online business that my marketing knowledge far exceeded a lot of the courses that I had signed up for and things that I had done. And people had started coming to me to like ask about content because I was putting my own content out there. And so then that kind of led into me mixing like the spirituality and the mindset with the business. And then since then, I've done a variation of that in different capacities where I really bring together like a holistic perspective of the strategy, the mindset, the energy, the confidence, like all of it wrapped into one.
Yeah, and you certainly do, from my experience of engaging with your content, as I said, now for a little bit of time now. But I also feel like it's evolved so much, the way you kind of stepped more into who you are, which leads me to my next question perfectly, because you teach a lot about authentic personal branding. And I think that a lot of business owners will have a sense of what that could be, but clear that up for us and make it, let's go really clear on what that actually is. And also, I'd love to know from your perspective, sitting through kind of your lens of expertise, where and how do most people get that wrong? Because I kind of feel like I see more of that doesn't feel authentic, doesn't feel personal, but
Yeah.
really about it being their brand. So like, where do you want to start with that?
So to me, authentic personal branding is about leaning into your personality and who you are.
Yeah.
And, I even struggled with this myself for a bit because I'm such a multifaceted person. I have so many different sides to my personality, so many different things that I used to think didn't go together. And I was like, whoa, well, like, how can I be this while I'm also that? And I felt like I had a lot of like duality within me. And so that was my own inner struggle with my branding until I realized that I could really bring all of that forward and bring all of me to the table while still choosing. There's different layers, different levels of depth. So it's like, there is the surface level of my brand, which is one facet of my personality and the part that I choose to bring forward the most. So it's like, the more sassy, funny, bold, fiery side of me that's like, the front facing kind of first face that you see of my brand. And then as people get to know me more, they get to know sort of my deeper layers where it's like, I'm very intuitive. I am a very grounded person, very emotional and empathic, and see things from like different layers and different perspectives. But the people who know me and who have been following me for a while get it and get all of it because they get me. But I had to make that distinction with there being different layers and different levels, because that helped me to not have branding that was all over the place or like, a bunch of different brand voices coming through in my content. And so that's what I say when I mean authentic personal branding is like, building your brand based on who you naturally are as a person, not trying to be someone else, not trying to, be different or better or whatever your idea of that is, but just really owning all parts of you and pulling from your personality to create your brand.
Yeah. I think I'm sure you've seen this as much as I have, even though we've kind of been, in the coaching space from different parts of the world. But, we follow, or we kind of get connected to a lot of similar coaches from, which is probably how we first connected. And I came to your presence very much so in the online space. But I find it so interesting when you can tell very easily who someone's kind of just invested in as their latest coach or the latest program, because they become visually, voice-wise, messaging a version of that person that they are working with. And it disappoints me. And I can imagine it breaks your heart too in many ways.
Yes.
That they kind of just got lost and just gone with that. And it's like, but who are you? Like, what is it about you? I want to get to know who you are. So you're getting lost in, if you want to use that terminology, or getting kind of stuck in believing that that's the way you need to present yourself. That frustrates me a lot on behalf of other business owners.
Yeah.
A lot of very challenged, lost souls out there who are kind of just looking for where do they fit, rather than investing the time and energy into getting to know themselves like you talked about, and understanding the different parts of themselves and what to bring forward into their brand. Yeah.
Right. And I think a big part of that comes from, I mean, I'm biased, but I think a big part of that comes from people who are calling themselves content strategists or messaging strategists or even just business coaches, right? Who really don't have an understanding of marketing or branding or that side of business. And they're just like, it's, I call it a game of telephone, right? Like where it's like, oh, you know, this person said this and they told their client to do this, and now that person is coaching this person. And it's kind of like a coaching pyramid scheme, MLM almost, like,
Much.
because it's like business coaches coaching business coaches who coach business coaches. That's what I see it. Like, I don't see it in other types of coaches as much. A little bit with like the spiritual side of things, the money mindset side of things. It's like these certain subsects of the market where the programs are very much like, this is what I did, so here you do this too.
Yes.
But that person who's teaching that doesn't really understand or embody the concept. They just know that it works because they kind of figured out how to emulate it from someone.
Yeah. I think for me, there's always been a big one of the, you know, red flag waving wildly when someone's like, I'm going to teach you this because this is exactly what I did to get to this result. Yeah, but that's what you did. It doesn't mean it's going to work for me. It's not going to necessarily work for you. And also the other version of that, like you just talked about, Juliana, was that, but my coach taught me this, and it's, you know, it's foolproof, fail-proof, all of those kind of language.
Yeah.
Big issue. And also so many of these people in this space, they actually don't know how to coach. They don't understand coaching methodology. They don't know, they work with people in that space. And as you said, to be a business coach and actually not have any kind of understanding and lived, you know, qualified experience in things like marketing, that is a huge concern to me, for sure. Lots of things there. So where else do we go wrong though? Like, if people are out there and they're kind of not hitting the mark with an authentic personal brand, what other things do you see mostly influence that, aside from that, the influence of their coach or people they've worked with?
Self-doubt, right? And lack of just self-love, self-confidence, whatever, you know, someone's unique version of that is. It can show up in a lot of different ways, but it's not being comfortable with who we are. And, you know, I mean, I've dealt with this. I feel like we all deal with this, where we sometimes question like, oh, will people actually like me for me? You know, am I, you know, will people take me seriously? Will they see me as an authority? Will they want to give me money? Right. And so like, it really comes down to like all of those different beliefs about, oh, I have to show up a certain way if I want this certain result. Right. And there's so many different variations of that. And it really just depends on, you know, what someone's unique set of beliefs are. Like, I know there are people who think they have to be like the traditional corporate professional if they want to be successful. There's people who think that they have to be very like feminine and flowy and talk about like the manifestation and the mindset and the spirituality if they want to be successful. And it's just like, you know, really, I truly believe that there's a place for everyone if they have a good offer and a good strategy, because like you can find your people. Like, there's so many different people, and like, sure, it might be harder to find some audiences and to actually connect with them from a strategic standpoint, but they're out there. And that's where it's like, again, you know, it's important to work with someone who really understands the different nuances of different audiences and target markets, and not just like,
no, for sure.
Yeah. You get what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. And it kind of feels like another whole episode to go into that, down that rabbit hole, right? And kind of explore that. But I find a lot too in the conversations I've had with clients over, like, I've been in this space for 18 plus years now, lots of conversations with business owners and incredible women around the world. And that energy of but there's nothing unique and different about me. Like, I'm this kind of, like, you know, whatever they do in their business, I'm a health coach. There's thousands of health coaches. Yeah, there are, but they're not you. Like in
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
right? And people really, I've found that they can struggle to really connect with that difference that they bring to their.
And a lot of people are afraid to connect with that difference. Either, well, this is like what I've experienced working with my clients, either because they don't feel comfortable owning those parts of themselves, or because they feel like if they brand that specifically, that they're going to be shutting out potential clients, right? Like it's kind of like that whole niching down thing. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, like I worked with a client who was really into like science and superheroes, and we created like this really cool brand for her, and it just didn't end up getting used, and that's okay, and like she's doing something different now, but I always wonder what would have happened if she had leaned into that, and like what would the result of that have been. And I feel like a lot of people like to play it safe and like to keep it general for a lot of different reasons, because you do attract a wider audience that way. You appeal to more people. That's what I did at the start of my business, and I hated it because I was not attracting the right people. So that's why then I created a more specific personality-based brand that was very unapologetically me. And now I love everyone who I work with. And so it really does make a difference.
It does. I think the fear that some people can have about, as you said, shutting out a percentage of an audience that could buy. But I always bring it back to, you know, do I really want those people to be investing in what I have to offer? Do I really want to be working with those kind of like subsets of maybe your ideal client? They might have some like things that are similar, or, you know, you can kind of, if you had a list of say 10 things that make up your ideal client, they might have 4 or 5 of them, but the other 5 make them so not your ideal client that really do you want them in your space at all? Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? So I want to shift a little bit, still related, because you know the whole authentic personal brand messaging is such a key part of that. And from my observation and interaction with you, I can see and feel and sense that messaging is a true gift that you have. Yeah, in terms of, and really challenging people to really hone in on their message and bring that authentic, you know, personal aspect to their messaging. So put you on the spot here, but I'm sure that you have far more than 3 to 5. But kind of think of like what 3 to 5 tips are ideal for someone who is feeling in that space of overwhelm and baffled by messaging. You know, they hear like the word message or messaging, and they don't even know what that means, because they've heard so many things about it that they've got into that space of overwhelm or confusion, or just feeling a little bit like, I don't even know what to do with this.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is don't overthink it. I feel like a lot of people just overthink it, or like stress out to the point where they're like, I need the perfect combination of words. I actually like mentioned this in the video I was recording today, where I've had a lot of clients come to me and be like, tell me how to say this thing in this like specific perfect way that's going to attract clients. And like, that doesn't exist. If you're looking for like a perfect combination of words, there isn't one. Sure, there are strategies that we can do to like increase the effectiveness of what you're saying, but there's no such thing as putting certain words in a certain order to like make someone do something. That just doesn't exist. So I think that's the first thing, is just don't overthink it. The second thing is, the clearer that you are on what you want to say, the easier it gets. And like, this has been a big internal struggle for me, because I'm so multi-passionate and multi-talented. There's a lot of different types of people that I like working with. There's a lot of different things that I like to do. But my business did get easier when I got a lot more specific with saying, this is what I do. This is what I'm all about. This is the main thing. And everything else kind of goes into it, but like, we're going to talk about it through the lens of standing out and sharing your message. Yeah.
So just as you said, it's that specificity that is so important, right? And I again, what you talked about before, the confidence, the challenge that people have, the lack of clarity, all of those things, can I really influence someone's belief that getting that specific is actually going to be of benefit, right?
Yeah, totally. It's also hard if you don't really know what you want yet. And that's, a place that a lot of people are in. And I think that's okay. And I think the more action you take, the clearer you get.
Mm, mm.
I say that like the three things that you need to create captivating content that converts is confidence, clarity, and strategy. Those are like the three foundational things, and they all connect because when you are more clear, you will be more confident in
Right.
what you're saying, because once you find that clarity, you realize that like, oh, that's your thing, right? Or like, I could talk about this for forever. It's so easy for me to think about this thing from a bunch of different angles. And so that creates more confidence. And when you're confident, it helps you to utilize the strategies because you'll show up more powerfully. You'll actually like implement what you know. You won't, self-sabotage or second guess or any of that. And then the strategy also leads to clarity. So it kind of goes like full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the more that you actually show up and take action and utilize, the various messaging strategies and content strategies, copywriting techniques, it helps you to get clear. Because it's kind of like journaling, right? Like if you like write about something for long enough, you're gonna get clearer on what you want to say, what you have to say, what's present for you, what wants to come through you. So yeah.
Love it. Love it. And I love how that they all kind of, as you said, like come full circle and dovetail in together. One influences the other one, who influences the next one, that influences the and it just keeps moving in that way. And yet the reality from my perspective is that so many individuals in business, particularly women, are the multi-passionate, multi-dimensional, multifaceted, multi-talented souls. And that's, I think, a big part of why they're drawn to be self-employed, because all of that kind of parts of your personality and who you are doesn't tend to work so well in a employee kind of experience. And so when someone's coming to the world, moving into business, or they're even pivoting in business, because how many times do like multi-passionate people pivot? Like sometimes multiple times a week.
Yeah.
That's an exaggeration, but I think there's some truth in that as well. How do you guide a client who's in that position, really struggling to kind of land on their key part of that personality, like you said you were able to do for yourself? Like, what is that main kind of personality that's going to kind of forward face into the world, and the main focus when they just, they've got all these other things they want to keep bringing in, and they're chopping and changing all the time? Like, how do you work with someone like that with their brand and then their strategy? I love it. Cats. Cats have arrived.
Cats, he almost just stepped on the power button. So I was like, let me grab him.
I love it.
So as far as it comes to like the personality and the personal branding, I feel like it's whatever is easiest and most natural for them to bring forward and to talk about in their business. Like, I know that although I have a lot of different facets to my personality, there's kind of like, one part of me that dominates and that comes forward most of the time. And I find that that is true for my clients as well. And so just on like the personality side of things, that's always kind of what I recommend. I'm really good at seeing people too. I think that's part of, what does make me good at messaging and personal branding, is it's very easy for me to reflect back to someone who they are and what they embody and what their gifts are and what they bring to the world. And so that's a little bit of the process that I go through. What I find even harder though with my people is like, who do I talk to? What do I do in my business? I want to do all these things. I want to work with all these people. And one of the things that has been the biggest game changer for both me and my clients, especially me though, has been like recognizing the difference between what I can monetize and what I want to monetize.
Oh, that's really interesting. So tell us a little bit more about that and in how it's been a game changer for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, for a while, I really did the more general business coaching thing, right? And I was like, I do, mindset, energy, strategy. I had all these different offers that like were all these different, pieces of that trio. And it was like, I would have a strategy offer about launching. I would have a strategy offer about selling high ticket. I would have a strategy offer about, content. And it's like, I finally got to the point where I realized that there were things where I was like, although I can do these things and I'm good at them, I don't enjoy them as much as I enjoy, the other things. And I would also say, follow where the money is to an extent, if this makes sense for you. Because for me, it was like my content stuff always sold the best.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like, I totally like looking back on my journey, I'm like, I so self-sabotaged because if I would have just like done this from the beginning and been like, yeah, I do content, but like also we kind of do success coaching to bring your personality into it. Like, I never thought that that was specific enough.
No, interesting.
Or I thought it was too specific. It really just depended on what mindset I was in that day.
Yeah.
But that was always my stuff that would sell the best. And it was always the stuff that was the most fun and the easiest for me to sell.
Right. Isn't it interesting how there's all those clues, like mapping out a pathway?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so often we end up getting distracted. And I think this is a lot of that influence of like going out and learning from other people and listening. And I'm
Yes.
all for that. But also take the best of what there is out
Yeah.
there and apply it to what makes sense to you and what feels easier, fun, free,
Yeah.
engages you, energizes you, all of that kind of stuff makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Also earlier on when you were answering that question, it made me think of a phrase that I lost track of how many times I've shared this with clients. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And
100%.
right, in relation to someone will come into a coaching session and they'll be like, I was talking with someone and they said I should do this because I'll be really good at it. And it's like something like so far removed from what they've actually, their focus is, what they actually love, what they do that really is in their effortless success zone, as I like to call it. But one person said they should do it because they could sell a lot of it. No, that's not how to follow the money, right?
Right. Yeah. And also, I mean, there's like a bunch of different tips that I can give on this. I think the first thing is like, follow where the money is if that makes sense for you. If the money is currently somewhere that you don't love, don't follow it, right? Because that is the situation that a lot of people are in. But if you're someone who's multi-passionate and you're like thinking you kind of enjoy all of the things, maybe you don't actually enjoy them as much as you think you do. That's where I was at. And then so becoming aware of that too, and really starting to bring my self-awareness more into my workflows was huge for me because I would realize like, I'll just like, so for my membership that I had, I made an offer in August that was all about selling high ticket. And I freaking hated that thing. I hated it. I was like, I committed to it. People were excited about it because I didn't really promote it because I didn't like it. And like, it just felt like, so painful to create.
So it's not authentic, right? It's not a
Yeah. And it's like, it did turn out to be really good. People were like giving me really good feedback, but I'm like, I don't like it. I don't feel good about it. So then I know I'm not going to sell it. Right. I was like, this doesn't light me up. And I think that was, one of the big pivotal moments that I've recently had where I'm like, okay, this is something that I can do versus something that I want to do.
Yeah.
And now, since I've been in the process of creating this challenge and making the content cauldron program that I'm working on, like all of it feels so fun.
Okay.
And like, yes, it's really time consuming, but like it's like I'm working a lot, but it doesn't feel awful, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm like, okay, this is the thing for me because it feels good. So like there again, it's like, observing your own work patterns and figuring out where you feel really excited and in the zone with things versus where you're like, yeah, I'm really good at this, but like it doesn't feel fun. Because like I'm really good at organizing things. I'm a ClickUp pro. Am I going to go and start a business about ClickUp? No, I'm not.
No, that's right. And I think there's so much is kind of coming to mind for me to talk about here. But one of the things that's really standing out is that distinction between what's a strength and what's actually just something you're good at. And I know
Yeah.
from my understanding, strengths are the things that come more naturally to us. They are more easeful, but they also energize us, and we can activate what I call being in your effortless success zone, but it's being in psychological flow where you could do that thing for hours and hours and hours, not feel drained by it and lose track of time because you're so immersed in it and it's so fun and so energizing, as opposed to doing something that you're good at, that you might be trained in, that you might have skill set in, but actually makes you feel terrible. Like it kind of goes against everything that you kind of everything you stand for and who you are. That's not a strength, really. That's just something you were good at or that you've learned how to do. Yeah. As you said, it's not going to light you up. Don't do it.
Yeah. I think there can be a middle tier there as well, too, where it's like, yeah, I'm good at this thing and like it's okay. It doesn't necessarily like go against my values. It doesn't drain me that much, but like it's not exciting me. And there's something that I could be doing that does excite me, right? So I think there's like that middle tier as well. And I think it just really comes down to self-awareness and observing our own workflows. And I even like, I feel like this makes me sound like a crazy person, but I feel like someone will be into it. I have started making notes about where my mindset is at while I'm working on certain tasks so that I can actually go and look back at it and be like, okay, when I was creating this, like it actually was worse than I think it was now at this point, right? Because like our minds change things.
They do. Yeah.
So often. And I know with me too, I go both ways. I have the tendency to make things that were better than they are seem worse than they are later on.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So I start tracking myself in real time and making notes so that I can go and be more objective of proving to myself that like that's the thing that I enjoy doing. That's the thing that I don't enjoy doing. Because my self-sabotaging pattern is to take myself out of my zone of genius or to constantly be thinking, I don't know what I want to do yet. This isn't good enough. I need to do something else. I need to add to it. I need to take away from it. I need to say it in a different way. Whereas like if I look back on my notes, I've literally been doing the same thing with messaging, personal branding, and like, the confidence that goes into those two things for years now. Like I've been saying it in the same way, but internally I've had so much dialogue of like, I don't know what I want to do with my business. Like, I don't know what I want to focus on. I don't know why people would hire me, why they would come to me, like what my offer should be.
I don't think that makes you sound crazy at all. I actually think there's going to be a large percentage of listeners that are going to resonate with that, because I can see myself having done that in the past, and I haven't gone to the point of documenting to the detail you have, but I actually think that's a smart thing to do, because if you're unsure about really what lights you up and does feel really great, as you said, our mind changes things, our emotions change things. The way other people respond to what we put out there, even if we didn't enjoy it, but they're like raving about it, it's like, well, maybe I should do more of this. But you fought against it the whole time because it was everything but what you wanted to be doing. Yeah.
Right.
So the actual evidence, once something's out there and published and shared in the world, can be very different to the often struggle that you had to bring it to life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no crazy. I think that's very
Okay.
smart too. And I'm intrigued to chat to you like after. So when I guess maybe side kind of note, because this episode will go live probably early in 2024, to be honest. But when I'm
Okay.
chatting to Juliana now, it's in October 2023, and she's just started an incredible challenge that she shared and bringing her content cauldron to life. So I'm intrigued to chat to you at some point down the track and find
Yeah.
out like kind of what things were like for you once you've gone through this launch, and see who does get attracted into work with you in the content cauldron. Even that, like the naming of it and everything, the branding, everything you've done about it, it's like, of course it's Juliana. Like that's, sitting on the outside, that's what I'm like, of course it looks like that. Of course it sounds like that. Of course the language is like that, because you can see the things that you're interested in, and having that just started and literally like the today kind of thing, seeing those that are interested and have kind of joined the space to be in that. I'm like, look at in terms of you identifying a potential ideal client, the repetition of the kinds of things people are interested in and what they're doing. It's like, there's all your evidence if you need evidence, right? It's like, I was looking at it earlier today, and it's like, wow, in terms of consistency. So I hope that those people that have been drawn in are actually matching your ideal clients for you.
They are.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what the conversions are like,
Yes.
to be honest. Because yeah, I mean, like there's a lot that we could go into there, but it is a big fun experiment, because I decided, I think this was like I don't know, it was probably in August. Yeah, it was in August, because I remember it was like right around the Lionsgate portal, and I was like, oh, this is like perfect timing. Where I just had this big epiphany that I was like, my brand needs to be more witchy.
Yeah.
Like I was bringing a lot of like the queen and like the evil queen vibes into it, but it's really like evil witch queen, which my brand inspo, this is something or you're on my email list, right? Something we've talked about before is like, my inspiration for my brand is Regina Mills, aka the evil queen from Once Upon a Time. And like, she's a sorceress, she's a witch, like she has magic, she's like so multifaceted, and but it's like that like royal energy, that like sassy confidence, but also that like very like grounded intuitive magic sorcery. And I was like, I need to bring that element into my branding. And I feel like since I've done that, things have really just fallen into place and come into more alignment, at least internally, because externally I've been working in the background, and so I'm really interested and excited to see what does happen with all of this.
Yeah. When you started sharing more about, as you said, that kind of witchy vibe, to me, it was like, well, of course, like it just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And that's like when something really is authentic, even though, this is the first time you and I have actually had a conversation like this, and, we're recording on Zoom, recording for the podcast. We've chatted in DMs, we've kind of interacted on social media. I'm sure I've responded to being on your email list and responded to your emails, but we've never talked before. But that doesn't mean that I didn't get that was really an authentic expression of who you were.
Yeah.
Because it's so powerful and such an authentic, genuine part of who you are. And I feel like in the time that I have known you and have been kind of, I'm very much a sit back. Yes, I interact, but I love to observe. And I very much love to observe women that are really kind of easing in, but in a bold way, into who they are. And I feel like I've really done that with you over the time that I have known you, and that you really have kind of stepped up and stepped into a version of yourself that was always there, but is bigger and bolder and really present now in the online space. And kind of, when I think about you, Juliana, I think, bold, no nonsense kind of personality, sassy, tell it like it is. And people are responding to that. Yeah. So how does that feel when you have, intentionally, consciously, and maybe unconsciously as well, made those shifts into being more of who you are? Like, how's it starting to feel now as with the way that people are responding in this, it's such a noisy online space. Yeah.
It is. It feels good. And it feels good too, knowing that I'm intentionally curating my audience with the right people, because my message is aligned, my brand is aligned. I know where I want to show up, where I don't want to show up, who my people are, who my people aren't.
Yeah.
And because of that, everything feels easier.
Good.
And I'm getting really no backlash anymore. Whereas like if I look at myself and my brand and everything like, you know, in 2020, which is really when things were like starting to pick up for me. And then I kind of went and hid for 2 years and then I kind of like came back on the scene. I got so much backlash. And it's because like I wasn't clear in my message. I wasn't clear in my brand. I was, you know, growing my audience from places that weren't aligned with who I am and my values and my personality. And so, I mean, like, that's hard. Like, to an extent, you know, we all care about what people say about us. Like, we can say that we don't, but like, if you get that mean comment, like, it stings and, you know, you can brush it off. I've done a lot of work around that. I still have things here and there where like people just really disagree with me or come at me for things, and it's fine. But you know, if that happens over and over and over again and all the time, it's like it does get to us and it does impact us. So I just feel so much better now where it feels like I have surrounded myself with the people who are right for me. I feel clearer in who I am and who I want to be. I feel more confident in knowing that I can build my business the way that I want to and showing up the way that I want to and like doing the strategies that I want to do and all of that. So yeah.
It's fun. It's such an interesting thing when you, as you said, you're kind of getting to know who you are, testing the waters, putting things out there. In some ways, I'm glad that the online space was nothing like it is now when I started. You know,
Yeah.
like I kind of have a bit of a joke, but I know like in local networking that I do in my home city, you know, people are like, well, what's a, you know, point of difference that you stand out? And, or like, you know, when I talk about how long I've been in business doing this, you know, it's like, yeah, I started my business before we had social media. And they're like, oh, what did you do? How did you get clients? Like you networked, you got out there, you went online, you connected in different ways. But there is so much competition, noise, influence in the online space that a lot of people, I feel, can really find that kind of, we talked about this a little bit already, that struggle to build that confidence, to be who they actually are. And to find their way to navigate when they don't get great feedback or when someone does challenge them and tells them that what they're sharing, what they're teaching, what they're doing, what they're coaching is wrong. Well, that's that person's opinion. But if you don't have that internal resilience and confidence, that could, like you said, you kind of did a hiding for, what was it, was it really 2 years? You kind of
it
like
felt like it to me. I like feel like really I have not been I hadn't been fully in my business. March 2021 is like when I shut things down. And I feel like March of this year is kind of like when I came back and started regularly showing up again.
Yeah. And
so I mean, to me, it felt like 2 years.
Yeah, right. And I mean, you know, not that I was paying finite attention to everything you were doing.
You know, I was still creating content, but like
you were.
If you were really paying attention, it was like all over the place. Like I didn't know what I wanted to talk about, and I was just kind of figuring myself out and figuring out like who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, because I had built my business really quickly from a place of not being authentic and not attracting the right clients. And I mean, some of them were awesome. I always feel bad when I say that because I'm like, I know there were people who like were with me in 2020 who like, they were really great, but then there were some that just weren't really great at all. And just a lot of drama and things that I look back on now and I'm like,
everything we do in our businesses, whether it's from putting out a piece of content to running a full-blown program or working with someone, you know, coaching them for a whole year or whatever that looks like, is an opportunity for us to learn about what we don't want to be doing and to, like, reaffirm our boundaries and to like, how can we actually be that authentic self and in a way that best supports the people we do want to be working with. There's always someone going to slip through the cracks, right? And not be the ideal match. But that, I think, is a gift because it gives you an opportunity to go, wait a second, what was going on here that this person kind of, you know, came into my orbit? because it's not working for us, me or them. Yeah. And what needs to change or shift so that this doesn't happen. Yeah. Moving forward.
Right. And I do think, again, like, I know I mentioned it before, I think the more action you take, the clearer you get.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm a big, believer in messy action and taking that messy action, because just staying, stuck in your head and thinking about things in your head and trying to figure it out that way is not going to give you as much perspective or clarity as actually like going out and doing the things will.
No, definitely not. I don't know if you know much about, you've probably seen me mention it, the Thrive Factor, which is my archetypal framework. And of the 12 archetypes in our own unique personal Thrive Factor profile, we'll have between 3 and 6. One that stands out for me that I 100% believe you have in your profile is called, and that your ideal clients will have, because there's definitely well, from my observation of kind of what was 2009, I first created this and worked with clients. So 14 years of kind of anecdotal observation. About 60 to 70% of our archetypes, our ideal clients have, which makes it so much easier to kind of find that resonance and talk archetype to archetype. The language is resonant there. But it's an archetype called the shapeshifter alchemist, which is the multi-passionate, multi-dimensional lover of all things spiritual and interesting and different and unique. One of the biggest challenges that they have is working out where to focus. Because, but what do you mean I can't do all the things? What do you mean I can't work with anyone who wants to kind of come and work with me? What do you mean I can't like offer services for the 15 things that I'm qualified in? So I am interested to see, being part of your challenge right now and looking at what happens with the content cauldron, how the very big shapeshifter community that I saw in that kind of like half an hour in the Facebook group earlier, like how they actually respond when you are challenging them. I mean, I don't know your content for this challenge, but I can sense it's like to bring them back into focus in some regard. Yeah.
To an extent. This one, not so much. I have another challenge plan that I think is going to be more about specifically like messaging and clarity. This one I did more of like just showing up and creating content and doing it with strategy and psychology. Because inside Content Cauldron, if they're called to that, like we do a lot of clarity work.
Right.
But the number one thing that I was hearing from people is like, I don't know what to say or how to say it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm just going to like let them play almost. And that's kind of how I have this one structured, because I do think a lot of the women that I attract deal with perfectionism and overthinking, which, no surprise, I do too. And so I think that holds a lot of people back from content, because they're like, it has to be perfect. And it's like, perfection doesn't exist. Like, yes, there is, a better, maybe like we can optimize, but something is always better than nothing. Like something that I used to say to my clients a lot, that honestly I need to bring this back because I really like this reference and I haven't said it in a while, is like, when you're in school, if you have an essay that's assigned to you, you can do that essay and you can, spend a bunch of time on it, make it amazing, make it as wonderful as possible, and then you can get an A+. Or you can balance doing that essay with like your other priorities and everything else that you have going on and turn something in and maybe get a B. Or you can say, because I'm not going to do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. Then you get a 0 and you fail. What's better, the fail or the B? The B. It's the same thing in your business.
Right.
So
much.
And I don't know if you guys have the same grading system as we do, because I know different countries have different.
Pretty similar. I think there's a lot of similarity in Australia to the American and also the British kind of schooling systems.
Yeah.
Different language sometimes, but that grades of A through to F.
Yeah.
Like definitely we still have that here for sure.
Okay.
Sometimes since I've been at school, but we still have that for sure. So that will, and people will resonate with that. Saying that, my biggest audience for the podcast is in the US. So everyone's gonna it's gonna make complete sense to them for sure. So but you're so right in terms of that. Just put something out there and kind of like let it be imperfect, because really, what is perfect anyway? I think so many people hold themselves to such extreme unrealistic standards.
Mhm.
Put anything out there, and that's actually another whole archetype that is the master or the the sorceress of that, if you want to call it that. But it's such an incredible negative impact, because what happens is that none of us get to know who you are. None of us get to know what you have to offer. We don't get to know what the incredible things that you could do, the ways you could help us, support us. We have no idea, because we never get to see anything, hear anything, engage with anything. And we've all put stuff out there that's had a typo, or hasn't been like laid out in a perfect kind of visual engagement kind of, formula.
Yeah.
And, I don't know about you, but I don't think I've really ever had anyone come back. Occasionally people come back and tell you about the typo, but, or that you've got the wrong, you've got a apostrophe or something where you should have something else or whatever. But really, most people don't care
Yeah.
what you're saying. Like, the message is the more important thing than what it looks like, and whether it's spelt correctly. So yeah, interesting, isn't it? Oh, we've got so much more we could talk about, but I actually do have some questions I want to ask you now that I ask every one of our guests, Juliana. So I'm intrigued to hear what your answers are. And just recently, the podcast had its first birthday, the beginning of October 2023, when you and I are chatting now. And we did one of the celebration episodes. My business manager mashed together some of the answers to these questions.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which was really great to, just take a kind of a sample of the answers from our first year. So I feel like we'll do that for the second year once we get to that birthday as well. Anyway, the first question I'd love to know your answer to is, what role does leadership play in your life and business?
I feel like leadership to me comes back to that authenticity piece. And it's self-leadership, where it's like being true to myself, making the decisions that are going to be best for me, holding my boundaries. And then leadership in my business means being willing to own what I am doing in all regards, and also being willing to be the person who goes first. I think a big part of how I view myself as a leader is kind of in like the trailblazer sense of things, where it's like I do like to innovate and try a lot of different things, and I would rather be the person who invents something than the person who like uses something from someone else. That's just my personality. So I like to be the one who goes first and like tries it out, and then comes back with, this is how it works for me. Here's maybe how it can work for you. Here's how you can adapt it to yourself. And another big thing for me is like leadership is about empowering others. And something that is huge for me in my business is treating everyone as equals. Because when I first entered the coaching space in 2019, like there was a lot of hierarchy. And
Isn't there?
yeah, and I mean there still is, but like that was what I came into, and what I saw was like these coaching relationships where it was like, oh, like the coach is like above their client and better than their client, and that just like so doesn't resonate with me. So that's
I'm on
part
the same
of
page with you on that.
so that's part of my own value as being a leader, is like seeing everyone as equals.
Yeah,
Just helping them to activate their gifts more by using my gifts.
I love how different the answers are to each of these questions that I ask, but also the resonance and the synchronicity across our guests that are from different parts of the world doing different things in their businesses. One of the things that stood out to me, again, was another of your potential archetypes, Juliana, which is the pioneer seeker. So you talked about, and that I've kind of seen this in your content, in your brand, in what you share, even the visuals. The pioneer seeker there's a queen ruler archetype, but the pioneer seeker, I call her the other queen. So of the 12 archetypes, she's the other queen. She's the queen of the underworld. So not afraid to go to the deep, dark places.
I'm like, that's
right?
all you had to say. And I'm like, yes, that's me.
Yeah. The pioneer energy is the innovator. Yes, she's the disruptor, the innovator. If something's going a certain way, she likes to kind of almost do the complete opposite just to see what it's at, right? Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
one of the interesting things that I love about the pioneer seeker, it's not an overly common archetype, but you know, you're kind of, these women stand out a mile irrelevant of their other archetypes, because it's such a strong energy when she really owns who she is. The seeker part is often out there looking for, well, where do I fit in the world? Because I am a bit of a loner. You know, you've been referred to as things like the black sheep. It's not necessarily a great term to use these days, but, you know, the one that sticks out, the lone wolf, like all of those terminology, the, you know, I don't fit in. But that's actually the bit about you that we love. That, like, that, you know, the audience is looking for that innovation, that sassy, that energy. She often says and does things that people are like, I can't believe you just said that out loud, right? So the pioneer seeker was definitely standing out there for me in what you were sharing about leadership for you, but also I've seen it time and time again. So if we ever get to profile you, I'd love to see if that, and
I'm like, send me the info, because now I'm so interested.
I will send you the info for sure. And now the next question.
I love archetypes of all kinds.
Yeah, same. Hence why it wasn't a deliberate thing, but by accident, I created my own archetypal framework.
Yeah.
Again, having spent decades nerding out on psychology and like, who are we in the world kind of thing.
Yes.
Next question I'd love to know the answer to is, how do you know when you're thriving?
Ooh. I feel like there's internal and external components to this.
Okay.
So like internally, based on how I feel, because I have to feel good. I have to be, you know, I don't think that we're happy all the time, especially because I'm very just dark and moody, like naturally, but like feeling content, feeling satisfied. I like those words so much more than happy, because I feel like happy brings an image up of like, I think of SpongeBob, honestly. I think of happy as like this like bright, smiley, super cheerful person. And like, that's not naturally me. But like when things are going well for me and I'm thriving, like I'm content, I'm satisfied, I'm savoring life. Like those are the words that personally resonate with me. And then the external factors would be having enough resources to do what I want to do. And resources is not just money. And this is something that I have come to learn. This has been a lesson for me, is it's like, if you just have money and you don't have the other resources, like the money doesn't matter. So the other resources being like time.
Yes.
I would say that the people we surround ourselves with are resources, because, you know, they can help to bring us that contentment and that satisfaction, and also to, you know, help us to live life, because life gives us our challenges. So I think the combination of those two things, where it's like my internal feelings and external resources, is how I personally know if I'm thriving.
Yeah, love it. Love it. And I think it's important to look at things from different perspectives. And I love that you went to that internal and external kind of viewpoints, lenses, to kind of get an answer to that question for us. So thank you. So if anyone's been listening in and they're intrigued to know more about you, how do they connect? Like, where can they find you?
Facebook is totally my main platform. I'm awful at Instagram. So I would say come join my Facebook group, because I'm just getting it started again. I had one and it got burned down in that whole little thing that I talked about. And I'm starting one back up again from scratch, and I have big plans for it. So facebook.com/group/roar to rich. Super easy to remember. I was like, it's just going to be the brand name, because that's easy to remember. So yeah,
we'll make sure that and your social media profiles, everything is linked up on the show notes. So it's, as I say often, there should be no excuse for anyone who's intrigued to find the guests that we have on the show, because we have all of the links to all the places in our show notes for them. So I'm not sure if you have a resource or a freebie, an opt-in, or something that you want to talk about that we can share with everyone as well. Is there anything that really jumps out for you that would be ideal to share, bearing in mind that this will be a little while before it goes live?
Right now, no, because I'm in a place of really just kind of restarting everything,
which is very exciting too. You're pioneering, right?
Yes. So like the Facebook group, you know, everything that I have that's going on will be put in there. I'm going to be showing up and doing weekly lives. At least that's my intention, unless I'm traveling or something, and just talking about, content, confidence, personal branding, success as entrepreneurs, kind of bringing more of the multi-passionate into that space with the weekly lives. So that's a really good place to start.
Good.
And then whatever else I create will be in there.
I love it. Good. Well, that will be easy for people to come and join, as you said, and then that way they can see what else is going on at the time when this is live, and what you're up to then as you are. As things, pioneers tend to move fast because they get bored quite quickly, and they tend to be ahead of the game. I often describe pioneer seekers to people as like, if they understand the term early adopter, which is a classic marketing term, the pioneer seekers are the earliest adopter of the early adopters. So when the other early adopters get on board, pioneer seekers like, I've been there, done that already. Like, they've moved on. Yeah. So yeah, very much. Yeah. And changing.
I can see that in myself with certain things.
Yeah. So to wrap us up for today, what's a final piece of wisdom that you'd love to share with the ambitious, kind of impact-driven, legacy-creating souls that are listening today, based on your area of brilliance?
The thing that's coming through for me is allow yourself to be all parts of you, and know that people will love you as your holistic self.
If we're talking about authentic personal brand, there it is in a nutshell right there, right?
Yes.
I love it. Oh, Juliana, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to finally have a conversation with you and find out more. And as I said, I'm excited about being part of your challenge that you have live at the moment. And I have no doubt there will be another challenge. So if you are...
There will. Actually, you said January. I think that's when I'm going to redo it again. So like, as you're releasing this, it might be happening.
Good. So, look out for things like that from Juliana, because there's lots of, there's lots of fun already in the first kind of few hours of it being live. I can share that from my own personal experience. So Juliana, thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Listeners, thank you for tuning in to She Leads, She Thrives. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe or rate, follow us, do all the things. If you're a long-term listener, thanks for staying with us. And if you have anything that Juliana has kind of resonated with you today, go and follow her and connect with her. Yeah. Go and see what a potential pioneer seeker looks like in the wild.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, everybody. Wherever you are in the world, have an amazing day.